Welcome to the satsang. It's quite a journey, isn't it? To be exploring the full dimensionality of our being, of our human spiritual being. To bring some attention to the full dynamic complexity, truth of who we are, what we are. To intentionally explore what's happening in this precious life, in this precious time of incarnation. So take a moment, settle in. Bring the awareness into the presence of this moment. Let's begin today with a meditation. Meditation is an intentional interruption of the habitual thinking of mind. Meditation is an intentional gathering of awareness. An intentional pointing of awareness. Out of the dream of self, beyond the dream of our habitual thinking and narrating and storytelling mind. So that we might be, we might recognize our being, our essential nature, the truth of our being. And in this journey, in this path of recognizing our truth, often called awakening, there are different ways of going about this, different paths, different modalities, if you will. And in this approach, we want to balance the ways of pointing our awareness, the directions in which we point that awareness, the awareness of our being. And what we will explore is pointing that awareness up, ascension, toward self, and pointing that awareness down, discerning what we are not, and moving away from what we are not. So moving away from what we are not and moving towards what we are. Those two different modalities, methods, ways have different impacts, influence on our ability to perceive self. And as we explore these ways, these directions of pointing awareness, I invite you to imagine an hourglass. Not so much the sand within the hourglass, but the shape of an hourglass. Open, wide, spacious at the top. Open, wide, spacious at the bottom. And in between, narrow. A constriction. A limitation. And to recognize, mostly, if we're not awakening as what we are, we're mostly living in a story of self, in a story of life, and in a ego narrated reality. Just our conditioning and programming in the sense of our personal self, telling a story about everything that we're encountering. And that's that narrow section of the hourglass, living a very narrow, constricted, small, tight, sense of identity, sense of self. And we feel it. We feel it, how constricting it can be and how tight it can feel, and how limiting, maybe even disempowering it can feel to be living in this very narrow band of consciousness. Living as who we are not, and only imagine ourselves to be. And these two ways, these two paths can be called via negativa and via positiva. via negativa is the awareness of what we are not. It is the path of discernment. I am not my thoughts. I am not my beliefs. I am not the transience of my emotions. I am not my mind. And we cast off these identities, these forms of identity that we are not, that we typically use to stay afloat in the world of form, in the world of community, in the world of everyone else who's living in the dream. It's like taking off a flotation device that we believe we have needed to stay relevant, to belong, to tread water. And when we discern what we are not, it's a surrender, it's a faith taking off the flotation device of personal identity and allowing ourselves to drop down. To drop down out of that narrow, constricted identity. Discerning what we are not, leaving it behind, and dropping into the spaciousness what often feels like the emptiness of being, just simply being. And not seeking to replace identity with anything. In the path of via negativa discernment, recognizing what we are not, shedding those identities that keep us afloat in this world of dream, we sink down, and as Rumi says, we sink down and down and down into ever widening rings of being. Allowing for the emptiness with no need to fill it or populate it with identity. Simply recognizing that we are no longer in the constricted, narrow, egoic narrative of our personal identity. And dropping down into a spaciousness that needs no identification. Except for that it is definitely not the mind, the thoughts, the emotions, the narratives, the judgments, the opinions, the conditioned perspectives, the programmed perceptions. It is not that. And in the balancing path of via positiva, we don't move away from what we are not. We ascend toward what we are. Love. The path of via negativa drops us into the nothingness, no definition, the emptiness. And we balance that with a journey upward out of that narrow, constricted identity, the middle of the hourglass. And we move towards what we are. We move towards love. where we may feel a fullness. A boundlessness that is saturated with love. And not even saturated with love. That is something being saturated with love. It is love. We move up, we ascend into the heaven of our own being. Whereas in the path of the via negativa, dropping down, letting go, surrendering, we find nothing. The freedom of emptiness. And in the path of via positiva, moving upwards, and recognizing the love that we are, we find everything. The oneness. Shedding the weight, the constrictions, the density of identity, of personal identity, and rising free. And abiding love. The oneness, the everythingness of love. Empty of story and full of love. Empty of illusion and full of truth. And no matter what direction we move, we're moving out of the narrow narrative story, egoic identity. And recognizing a spaciousness of being, empty of story and full of love. The ego tells us that we are something. Discernment tells us that we are nothing. Love tells us that we are everything. God does not tell us we are something. Or nothing. Or everything. God simply says, I am. Not I am nothing, not I am something, not I am everything. Simply, I am. And you are that without being you. And God is that without being God. I am. Take 3 good, deep, nourishing breaths. not returning to the narrowness of the hourglass, but abiding. I am. I simply am. Not something, not nothing, not everything. Just I am. No hourglass, no shapes. Another good, deep, nourishing breath. So, questions? Shares, perceptions. It's a very different life to live conscious of your being. Let me check my chats here. Yeah, Robert here. Letting it all go. I cannot not be me. Yeah. The ego wants to define, name everything. To color every moment, everything, every experience with its interpretation. And it tells us to be afraid of letting go. Who would you be, it says. Who would you be? What would you do? How would you survive? You cannot not be you. So Robert's pointing to here. You cannot not be you. If sitting in this moment right now, you let go of all story, all narrative, all definition, all roles, all successes, all failures. Your entire history, your entire past, everything that has been used by the egoic mind to cobble together an identity. If you dropped all the beliefs, if all that disappeared, totally disappeared, went away, gone. If it magically just completely went away, your entire personal identity, just for a few minutes, we're not asking you to imagine living like that, because we live with a personal identity. We have a sense of individuality in this world of form and time and space. But we identify so heavily with it and as that we forget our truth. So let's play for a moment. If you let it go, if it didn't exist, would you disappear? Sometimes it may feel like without that there'd be emptiness. Okay. Allow the emptiness. At least it's not filled with illusion. At least it's not filled with the false self. See what happens. You can play with these paths, these directions of awareness. You can either take off all the identity and drop down and down and down into ever widening rings of being. Or you might drop the weight of identity and ascend toward what you are. Letting go of what you're not, you drop down. Moving toward what you are, toward love, you ascend. Heaven. You are not who you think you are. You are not that narrow knowing of self, the middle of the hourglass. You're not that. Well, then who would I be? Well, go find out. You'll be fine. Because all you're going to find is truth. That's all you're going to find is truth. But I don't know what that is exactly. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know how that will live this life. Go find out. The truth shall set you free. I can tell you for certain that you will not be living in the constructs of fear. You will not be living in the constructs of constant self-questioning. You will not be living in the egoic struggle of needing to be validated, needing to prove, needing to defend your story. The invitation here is to be attentive in your meditations, simply in your conscious waking hours of moving through life. Play with these paths, the paths of moving toward what you are, love. The path of discernment, of recognizing what you are not, what you've been taught, what you've been conditioned to feel and believe and fear. Know thyself. This is the opportunity. Know thyself. Recognizing the formless nature of being. We get so caught up in the story, in the narrative, in the conditioned, programmed opinions, judgments, beliefs. We take them to be real. They're activity of mind. We take them to be so real. We get so caught up in the content of experience, we forget the peaceful awareness, the unconditional loving awareness that we are, the awareness of the experience. It doesn't get caught up in the experience. Experiences it, but never forgets its truth. Take a look around the room. Wherever you are, take a look around and ask yourself, can you see the light in the room? Can you see the light? You might say, yeah, I can see the light. That's what I said when I was first asked. Can you see the light in this room? Sure. Yeah. But I was asked again, and I'll ask you again. Really? You can see the light? You realize, oh, no, I see what the light illuminates. But I can't see the actual light. Like I've got a light over here. Now I can see the source of the light, But between the source of the light and what it is illuminating, reflecting off of, in between, I can't see the light. The only way I might see the light is if there was some incense smoke or some dust motes. But even then, I wouldn't be seeing the light. I would simply be seeing the incense smoke or the dust motes that were being illuminated by the light. The invitation here is to be more interested in the presence of the light that you can't see than with all the objects that the light is illuminating that you can see. I'll say that again. The invitation here is to be more interested in, cognizant of the light that you can't see, more interested in that, recognizing its presence, knowing that it is there. Remembering, oh, there's light. Yeah, there's light. I never think about it. I only see the objects. I only think about the objects. I'm so hypnotized by the world of sensation, what I see, hear, touch, smell, taste, that I forget that all of this is possible because of consciousness, because of awareness, that I can't see, that I can't touch, that I can't smell, that I can't taste. But it is the awareness of what I taste, the awareness of what I smell, the awareness of what I see, the awareness of what I touch, the awareness of what I think, the awareness of the emotion that arises and passes. Be more interested in the formless presence of awareness than all that moves in and out of that awareness. You can't see the light in the room, but you can see all the objects. But you can recognize, you can inquire, wait a minute, there is light. What allows the objects to be seen? The presence of light. And even though I can't see the light, I acknowledge its presence. Of course it's present. I wouldn't be able to see the objects without it. Of course it is present. So what allows us to know everything? To experience everything? Even the dream of self. Awareness, consciousness, the essential nature of our being that we overlook because we can't see it, because we're so captivated by everything that it is aware of. The invitation is to be more interested in the presence of unwavering, unconditional, loving awareness. That then witnesses every emotion, every thought, every triggered belief, emotion, conditioning, struggle, fear, doubt, confusion. What is aware of it? I am. I am. Loving awareness. Oh, and there's an emotion. Oh, and there's an old thought pattern, a disempowering, perhaps negative thought pattern. I am not that. That is known by what I am. That is known by I am. The fear is known by I am. I am doesn't move, it doesn't waver. It's already whole, complete, not threatened. The essential truth of our being. Witnessing fear. Not needing to run away from it, not needing to resist it, not needing to make it go away. Just loving it. And when you shine light into darkness, the darkness will no longer exist. Rest in the love that you are and allow all your conditioning, all your programming, all of your difficulty, all of your confusion to arise into this unwavering love. So it can be illuminated with truth. We come to know our truth not to not feel our fear, our conditioning, our programming, our struggle. We come to rest as the stillness and peace and love of being, so that we might finally allow everything that wants to be healed, that wants to be illuminated, that wants to rise up out of the darkness, to be seen, to be loved, to be held, to be allowed, to not be judged, to not be shamed. So the invitation is to practice your ability to point awareness, either with discernment, being very clear about what you are not, dropping down of what you are not into the emptiness of that story, into the beingness empty of that story. And sometimes to bring your awareness to rising up out of the story, out of the density, and being attentive to what you are. Love. I don't know if you can hear a little bit of music. I'm on the rice fields and they're planting the rice. They have plowed under all the fields and flooded them with water. And today's the day they are out. The community is out planting the rice shoots in the fields. It's beautiful. And they've got their little transistor radio. They're playing music while they work. It's beautiful. And it bleeds through. So you might hear some of that. All right, my friends, blessings. The ego tells us we are something and need to maintain that something and prove that something and defend that something. The discernment of what we are not tells us we are nothing, empty. Love, moving in the direction of love, tells us we are everything, the oneness. And God does not tell us that we are something, or that we are nothing, or that we are everything. It is not, I am something, I am nothing, I am everything. God simply says, I am. Leave off the nothing, leave off the everything, leave off the something. God says, I am. And you are that without being you. And God is that without being God. I am. That is home. That is the wholeness of being. All right, blessings, my friends. We'll see you soon. We'll see you in the next satsang, 2 weeks. Be well, peace, and love.